Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Welcome to this week's special edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. This weekend in the upcoming month is the Movie Wire's wrap-up month leading to the Oscars. Each week I will have a movie that I may have missed that we may see up during awards time. With just wrapping up the Golden Globes, I figured it was an appropriate time to start with some nominees and winning films that will have a good shot at nominations this year. So we are starting with 3 nominees and winning films to kick us off this award season. This week on the show, A Real Pain Remembering Through Small Gestures, and 4 Golden Globe nominations and 2 wins is A Real Pain. Old Friends, New Enemies, and the gloves are about to come off. And the Best Animated Film nominee, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl, now streaming on Netflix. And finally, To Listen is to Accept, and the 10 Golden Globe nominations with 3 wins is the Netflix original, Emilia Pérez. We've got a lot to cover this week, so let's jump right in. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows to watch, a roar and a burst of flame. The Movie Wire podcast.
There it is.
You need people like me.
The Wire. And here we go.
Quererme a mí misma, quererme así toda, quererme así como soy.
Emilia Pérez follows 4 remarkable women in Mexico, each pursuing their own happiness. Cartel leader Mantillas, played by Carla Sofia Gascon, enlists Rita, an unprecedented lawyer, to help fake her death so that she can finally live authentically as her true self. In the Netflix original and Golden Globe winner, Emilia Pérez.
Are you English?
No, I'm not English. Why?
No, because you you are pretty.
So? Doesn't your client have a name?
He desires to remain anonymous. If you're not willing to accept, I don't think it's worth talking.
Just cut to the chase.
To listen is to accept.
Emilia. ¿Eres tú? Mingo.
You know, I did promise myself this last season that I was going to limit my ratio of streaming films versus theatrical releases this season to focus more on theatrical. My love of the experience, along with my own personal zen of sitting in an overused, outdated, uncomfortable theater seat, will always come before physical comfort while watching a movie. If I wanted a comfortable theater movie watching experience, I would just watch it for home instead of going to a theater full of leather reclining seats that seem to only benefit the overly horny teenagers more than the adults that will tend to fall asleep in pure comfort, or the kids that will find the buttons more entertaining than the big screen. In my house, I do have my office that some have seen on our crossover YouTube channel with Back to the Balcony that has a 120-inch screen that comes down behind me with a projector and a basic 7.1 surround setup, along with my desk and a very uncomfortable couch that I got on purpose that feels like a theater seat. I try and watch as much streaming there as possible when I do a review. But as I watched Emilia Pérez at about the 45-minute mark, I did something I have yet to do with a movie that I review for streaming. I moved downstairs to my 8K TV with Atmos and Kef in-wall speakers. That I will never confess to my wife how much I spent on them, because I was so engulfed with this experience of storytelling, along with the audio and visuals and performances that took the storytelling to a new level, that I needed to experience this fully. Movies for streaming has had its ups and downs. Mostly downs with the movies that are released. And even though Emilia Pérez is not just a good movie, but a great movie, it's a double-edged sword that it did upset me, but at the same time made me grateful. This is a movie that I wish everyone could experience like I did, and even in a big screen movie theater setting with good audio and video. I thought to myself, this could have been appreciated even more if presented in a theater, but at the same time, I'm grateful for it being on streaming for everyone to see and appreciate for what it is. And Emilia Pérez is a brave, unique, engaging piece of musical storytelling that, even if you're not a fan of musicals, doesn't insert music to continue a story like some, but rather complement the character's emotions and thoughts with each and every musical number. Emilia Pérez is mostly subtitled, and this is where the musical aspects come in handy. Its strategy through dance and visuals leans into the storytelling as context clues, where my eyes didn't need to understand or pay attention to the dialogue per se, but I could feel it and understand our character's intent. The movie was directed by 2018's Sister Brothers director Jacques Audiard in his best directed film to date, especially when trying to use so many genres from pop musical to thriller to crime drama. This is a tough ensemble of genres to film, to balance, and to ensure that all audio and video really does support the art of storytelling. Audiard's art of vision creates a story that is not only engaging, but also an incredible emotional roller coaster of questioning how we should be feeling in terms of rooting for the leader of a drug cartel. We see the weight of actions from murder, drugs, numerous other crimes, but our writers Thomas Bidgain, Liam Macias, and also writer-director Jacques Audiard convince us that there is a deeper level of redemption here that overhangs our two main characters, Rita, played by Zoe Saldana, and of course Carla, played by Gascon. Rita wants a feeling of redemption, and Emilia wants actual redemption. Our writers carefully orchestrate and balance law and order and morals through these characters up until the climax, where the genuine moral compass does guide us to an okay, satisfying climax if you look at it at a surface level, and that kind of climax might not appease all, but if we look at a deeper level, it makes for a perfect ending. To earn redemption, one must confront the actions of the past. Saldana and Gascon both give not only fantastic performances, but performances that linger in thought well after the movie is done, especially Saldana in one of her best performances of her career. As I watched Saldana in some scenes, it made me feel like watching an opera where I'm listening to the main character do a slow crescendo leading up to a pivotal high note, and I close my eyes and wait for that moment to come, and I cringe my face up and hold my index finger towards the sky, cheering the singer with a smile where she sings an outrageous high note, whole note in perfection. Saldana gives a pitch perfect performance in my opinion, which will be hard to beat when it comes to awards time. That's only if the Academy can let go of Oscar politics and ratings. This is a type of movie and material that could only work with the proper chemistry between a lawyer and a drug lord, or a former drug lord, I should say. There is not one moment between Rita and Emilia Pérez that didn't feel genuine and intriguing on premise. Now, to me, the pen screenplay didn't blow me out of the water, even though it was a good screenplay. The premise is intriguing, but the dialogue could have gone further. But even with that said, we can tell that this film was led by a complete understanding of the material by our cast and performers, and Adyar's character direction. We not only question the outcome of what could come from each individual, but what could come from our two main characters when it comes to the relationship. There were times that me personally, I could have used a little bit more added substance to help build these two and help build the chemistry. And that's a minor fault of the movie, is the mere fact we don't get enough build with dialogue of our two main characters. But the actual performances really does compensate for the lack of depth from the dialogue. This is a true testament to the power of performance, where we do have passion with the line delivery, but it's even more than that. This cast gives us its all, even when it comes to facial expressions, body language, especially through the subtle scrounging of the face or a half smile with downturned eyebrows. While the delivery of the lines, they're good, they're fantastic, they're amazing, but that's just a piece of a performance. We get the facial expressions of emotions, just a slight difference in facial expressions, or a slight movement during a dance number that really give us that buy-in of believability. All this is because our cast feels the idea. They know the stakes. They know the emotional stakes of this, and they buy into this, that our writers are really going to portray. This is a true effort from an ensemble of filmmakers on how to portray these characters. These are good performances because everybody is on the same page of understanding of what kind of story this wanted to be. Emilia Pérez is not only unique when it comes to musical storytelling, it's also unique when it comes to how to tell a story with an impressive amount of skill, a balance of subgenres, to have a viewer not question what kind of movie it's trying to be, but it keeps in question what we should be feeling. And this is something the movie does successfully, is giving us the thrill of feel with a question mark of how we should be feeling even after the credits roll. This is one of the best streaming movies of 2024, if not on my top 10 list for best movies of the year. I'm giving Emilia Pérez...
No kidding. We got one!
4 stars.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now.
Now available on video cassette.
Go with the flow, and one of the best animated features this year in Flow, which is now the best animated feature at the Golden Globes, which stands on all fours in a hypnotic, beautiful animated journey, receiving 4 stars. Villains aren't born, they're made. His Hunt Begins in Raven the Hunter, which received 1 star, which sounds more like a Sony Pictures tagline. So let's try this again. Sony wasn't born, it was made, and they made a pretty shitty movie, so let the internet hunt begin. Everyone deserves a chance to fly in the book to Broadway, Broadway to the big screen adaptation of Wicked, which brought down the house with nobody underneath, receiving 3.5 stars. What We Do in Life echoes an eternity in Gladiator 2, which felt like an eternity to get through, receiving 2 stars. On New Year's Eve, 1999, the Y2K bug changed the world forever in Y2K, which felt like the movie was more of an inconvenience than what actually happened during Y2K. The greatest story ever told by the worst kids in history of the world in the greatest Christmas pageant ever, which is the best Christmas present you will get this Christmas, receiving 3.5 stars. Question everything in Heritage, which challenges the mind with questions and knows that can be scarier than the scariest monster, receiving 3 stars. Till Death Do They Part, when it's the epic conclusion in Venom The Last Dance, which made Magic Mike's Last Dance feel like an Italian opera, receiving 1.5 stars. And finally, One Man's Doubt could change everything in Juror Number 2, which in this film's court of law was proven one of the best movies of the year, receiving 3.5 stars. Make sure you check out those movies in my previous episodes, and while you do, don't forget to hit follow, subscribe, and please don't forget to hit that review button on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, where Antonio and I cover some of Siskel and Ebert's most interesting, shocking, and entertaining film reviews and discuss if it holds up or if they get it wrong. Back to the Balcony is now available on all podcast listening platforms and YouTube right now. The link to that show will be in the description of this episode. But let's hear from Back to the Balcony now.
Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, two titans of cinematic review. Sometimes right, sometimes wrong, but always captivating. Your hosts Antonio of the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and Justin Henson of the Movie Wire are here to take you back to the balcony.
I really don't do reviews, but for me it's more about like, hey everyone, these films exist.
When we go into Siskel and Ebert, we're not always going to agree with Siskel and Ebert, but, there's some aspects we may.
And I think with each episode we're going to understand these guys a lot more than we think we have in all the decades that we've been reading their stuff.
Top dog Gromit springs into action to save his master when Wallace's high-tech invention goes rogue, and he's framed for a series of suspicious crimes. In the Netflix exclusive, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl.
Feathers McGraw, you have been found guilty of the attempted robbery of the Blue Diamond. If not for two upstanding citizens, you would have succeeded in your wicked plan.
Morning, Gromit. How's my favorite pooch? Another great day of inventing beckons. Wait till you see the next thing I'm working on. A smart gnome.
Holy Nobot!
Oh, hey! Oh, look at him go. A Wallace onesie. He's a household gnome. What could possibly go wrong?
Nobot, recharge time. New instructions received.
What on earth? I just don't get it. Why would me own gnome turn evil?
It's a proper crime wave.
Where's me tools?
Where's me shed?
And where's me glasses? Oh, they're on me head.
Good grief, it's you? Again? It's Vengeance Most Fowl!
Nominated for Best Animated Feature Film for this year's Golden Globes that was beaten by the well-deserved ambitious animated film Flow, comes the new Wallace and Gromit movie. Now, 2024, I was pleasantly surprised with the animated films this year, and the nominees with the exception of Moana 2. It's been a great year for animated family films with 2 nominees that may end up on my top 10 movies of the year. Wallace and Gromit, even though the only film to be nominated that was available only on streaming, which after Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, and streaming animated films this year being more of the same generic fluff. As much as I love Wallace and Gromit, I also love the original Chicken Run. So there was a level of excitement and skepticism. Wallace and Gromit has always been a good relaxation tool for me to just sit and enjoy the humble humor. As I got into the first 10 minutes of the film, there was a subtle ease of familiarity and a subtle smile swept across my face. The starting foundation of charm and utilization of a familiar animation that sparks the imagination and uses the animation to not only its advantage, but enhances the fun factor right from the get-go. Vengeance Most Fowl was directed by Merlin Crossing, the animator to Wallace and Gromit and the Were-Rabbit, and we can see an amplified care into the animation that doesn't take away from the charm, but amplifies it and makes it current to audiences today. Without throwing in contemporary jokes or gags, it sticks to their original tradition of the cartoon. Wallace and Gromit continues to evolve while staying true to the charm and creativity that made the icons in the first place. And keeping all the animation in mind and keeping the current times, Vengeance Most Fowl is no exception. They don't steer to the current societal pressures of what entertains our youth. This latest installment in their storied franchise, this is a film that's an absolute joy to watch in an entertainment aspect, offering a perfect balance of comedy, suspense, and visual engagement. Vengeance Most Fowl is made by Aardman Animation, who is renowned for their incredible stop-motion techniques, and this film exemplifies their expertise in the art form. The attention to detail in every frame is colorfully detailed, and with every character, set piece, and object meticulously crafted to create a world that feels both tangible and magical. Crossing ensures that certain objects or characters are slightly amplified to ensure that it stands out amongst the rest of the set pieces. That are again beautiful set pieces, but the direction and animation direction here really shows where the audience's eyes should be focused on. From the opening scene, it's clear that Aardman has spared no expense in bringing the adventure to life. The textures of Wallace's home, the rustic beauty of the countryside, and the elaborate designs of the vehicles and machines are all brought to life with such precision that it's easy to forget you're watching a stop-motion film. There are almost a time that I had to remind myself that this isn't necessarily CGI, but actually stop-motion. The physicality of the animation is remarkable. The subtle movements and expressions of the characters are enhanced by Aardman's unmatched skill, making Wallace and Gromit's world feel alive. And again, engaging to watch for those just being introduced to Wallace and Gromit while appeasing fans of the past. Now, of course, the main focal point is our characters and the animation. That's the hook to get us into hitting play on Netflix. But Vengeance Most Fowl at an hour and 22 runtime does feel like it's missing something, and that's more for those that are just being introduced to Wallace and Gromit. It's the mere fact that we don't get a lot of time with our Wallace and Gromit characters to really build anything new. And for current fans, we are well adjusted to the antics of these two characters. But for those just tuning in, kids will be appeased by the pacing and animation, but having an actual connection with these two, to actually care about these two characters, might be a near miss. Our writer Mark Burton does get a lot right here when it comes to keeping the pace, but we can tell that pacing is at top of mind. And this is the main mistake that most animated writers make, is to assume the audience won't be invested with the story if there's any added substance. But even with an added mere 10 minutes more of chemistry build with our Wallace and Gromit, to really take them to another level during the second act would have made the emotional element during the climax take off and feel more relevant. And don't get me wrong, the climax is a good, satisfactory, average climax, but it also made me reflect on how much more it could have been effective if Burton spent a few more pages of screenplay to Wallace and Gromit's build. In terms of an animated movie and pacing, the plot is easy enough to submit to the amount of charm and leading to something exciting and emotional. Ben Whitehead comes back to voice Wallace since his 2005 introduction in Wallace and Gromit and the Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Wallace and Gromit solve a crime of a missing diamond and put the villainous penguin Feathers McGraw behind bars. After solving that case, Wallace is strapped for cash and invents a robot gardening gnome for hire. Things go terribly wrong and the gnomes start to act a little strange. Wallace is framed for crimes he didn't commit. All in the while, behind bars, Feathers McGraw is plotting his next crime surrounding revenge against Wallace. It's a straightforward crime adventure plot for kids, the story we don't really get any challenge from, and that's okay. The animation we can see improvement, the pacing a slight improvement, but the evolution of Wallace and Gromit was a disappointing one. And if we had an evolved story that really did need to have more substance, then this movie would be more at fault. But I get the simplicity of it, but I just wanted more. I wanted something from our characters to really take us to a next level. The real problem we have is with Burton, where we can see his experience in previous works, such as Madagascar, Romeo and Juliet, and even the more recently reviewed on my show, Paddington in Peru. A lot of these shortcuts just to appease pacing especially with Paddington in Peru that was just on a couple episodes ago on this show. I had the same feeling that washed over me, is utilizing the assumption of fans of the characters, leaving those that know our characters with their thoughts of our characters' past, and allowing that to drive the movie and putting in time and effort during the second act to really build something. We had that same problem with Paddington. It really does have the audience fill in the blanks when we really want more of an evolution of the character. But here comes the but, because this is going to be a but review. But at the same time, it's hard to resist, just like Paddington, the animated charm and a proper sense of threat from such irresistible characters, from Wallace and Gromit to the Cape Fear cute silent penguin. And I will throw him a bone if I have to give Burton some credit here on not getting tempted at trying to give one animal an opportunity to speak, and still holding to the tradition and charm of this type of animated storytelling. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl may not stand a chance against such great animated films like The Wild Robot or Flow come awards time. But if they had to throw a streaming movie in just to throw it in during award season, which I hate to say, but if they had to throw one in, I'm glad it was this one. It doesn't break any ground, but it's still fun, bright, charming, and at times takes Wallace and Gromit up a step when it comes to adventurous and hyper speed pacing when it comes to the Wallace and Gromit style. It's an engaging, innocent film that will keep the entire family entertained, and that's more than we have seen from most animated films and streaming in the last couple of years. So for that, I'm giving Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl, 3 stars. Mismatched cousins reunite for a tour through Poland to honor their beloved grandmother, but their old tensions resurface against the backdrop of their family history in the Golden Globe nominee and winner, A Real Pain.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. Boner is not available.
Hey, Benji, I just got to the airport. I really hope you left already. Oh, God, you made it.
What's up, cuz? I got some good shit from when we land.
Wait, you're not, like, taking weed into Poland, are you?
Oh, yeah.
Benji?
They don't give a shit about that stuff, man.
I think they very much do give a shit about that stuff.
Yeah.
We get high in backseats of cars.
Davers and I are cousins. We used to be joined at the hip. Our grandma was from here, so Dave arranged for us to join this geriatric Polish tour with you fine people.
That's the way we get by.
I really needed this, man. I know that it's tough for you to leave your boy.
The way we get by.
I don't really have anything going on.
I know it's been a tough few months for you, so...
I also want to say that I know you're not the most comfortable person with people.
I'm not?
No. Does it look real?
Well, they're twice the size of you in metal, so...
You sure you don't want to come up here?
I'm good.
Can you take my picture?
That's what I'm talking about. Marcia!
Thank you, David.
But it's amazing that you're here, putting yourself out there so boldly for me.
Thank you, man.
Let's go smoke a joint.
Word of warning, this will be a tour about Penn.
Our grandmother and Benji were super close.
I mean, she was the coolest. I've just been in a real funk, I guess, since she died. Just haven't,
You ain't alone.
You're looking back at the horrors of your family history.
We completely cut ourselves off from anyone else's true pain.
Why are you doing this?
Oh, man, you used to, feel everything.
Obviously, there are triggers along the way.
We're not at the right station.
And you didn't wake me up.
Oh, you were having such a good nap, dude.
Jesus
you were
Christ, you're on a tour group with
I know, I just didn't have the heart to wake you up.
Has he always been like this?
I love him, and I hate him.
What the flying jeez?
And I want to be him.
You used to cry about everything.
Yeah, it was awful. Who wants to cry about everything?
We're in a Holocaust tour. If now is not the time to grieve, I don't know what to tell you.
Nominated for Best Original Screenplay and winner for Best Supporting Actor at the Golden Globes by Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain dives into the journey of underlying emotions of pain through oneself and the empathy of others, all at the same time while showing examples of humor, friendship, conversation to realization. Pain or past pain can resurface at any moment of realization, even if it's at a happy moment. One things over the year as we dive into post-traumatic stress, depression, or trauma from one's life, we realize that identity identifying pain in another individual isn't obvious at all times. But while I was watching A Real Pain, I was reminded of a quote, and forgive me, I forget by whom. When it came to Robin Williams' death, it was said that Robin made others laugh so they didn't have to suffer the way he did. People going through mental anguish or mental pain or depression, their psychological pain is a weight that they may not want to burden onto others. And even on the surface level, when one seems okay, one can never know. Which to me makes the don't judge a book by its cover seem like it was meant for something else in these times as we become to realize the severity of depression. And it makes us look a little bit deeper or critical of our friends and loved ones' life and how suicide have become such a surprise when one makes the decision to take one's life. Our writer, director, and star Jesse Eisenberg doesn't give us a read between the lines look at this mentality, but rather shows us what happens in between the lines while keeping the facade of the character personas at the surface level above the mid-range and the dark reality below the middle of the lines. Again, A Real Pain stars Jesse Eisenberg as David, a safe, introverted family man who decides to take a tour of Poland with his contrasting cousin Benji, played by Kieran Culkin, where they encounter a group of new friends as they visit concentration camps, war monuments, and gravestones from Poland's origins. The special thing that Eisenberg does with this premise is not just give us the same old recycled material, things that we've seen before, the normal themes that we have seen time and time again, that you should be grateful for the life that you live. This is where Eisenberg takes this theme seriously and the messaging seriously of mental stability. Instead of seeing the same recycled messaging that we see, we get hints of that. He rather uses the same material that we've seen before and rather uses this as a vehicle of another death, another layer of pain to bring to the surface of the guilt of pain, or a journey of realization of appreciation of life, and through the appreciation brings reflection on how and why our journey led us here to the point of what we want to focus on successes, or when it comes to our two characters, a focus on failures of why they aren't better or stronger than their roots. These are characters that don't just bank on each other, they are both in consistent reflection of the reason why. And not just the reason why they are the way they are, but how they got there. This is a movie about a journey, not just mental health, but the journey of how they got to the point A to point B, of mental stability or lack thereof. We can tell the passion put into this screenplay, whether that's Eisenberg's own experience of pain or those that are close to him. He handles the topic with a feeling of it being so close to home, where not everything is just as simple as calling it depression or mental pain or anguish. Eisenberg at times can be subtle and extremely delicate on how he handles this topic, slowly peeling back the layers that feel natural and believable and never dares to be situational. Our Benji character, played by Kieran Culkin, is perfectly classed to handle this role with a level of confidence, yet an underlying level of pain that he has gone through in the past. And this was a perfect casting choice. We can tell that not only Kieran Culkin gets into the role, but he could potentially tie in the pain of youth from the loss of his sister Dakota to the lack thereof relationship of his father and weight of expectation set in an early age of success. Culkin does a fantastic job in this performance. It's believable because it feels so real. And I wouldn't say that this was an improvement to the acting range of Culkin, but rather just a perfect vehicle for him to output his life experiences. And from Benji's highs and emotional lows, he gives a well-deserved performance and a well-deserved award for Best Actor at the Golden Globes. This was pitch perfect casting, and it makes me wish there was an award at the Golden Globes for Best Casting. Now, I have said in episodes past that when I'm going into awards time, I kind of balance the challenge of the role versus just a good performance. And I've looked at the challenge of a role versus a great performance with simplistic dialogue. And even though we can see some simplistic dialogue here, there is nothing more challenging than having simplistic dialogue that needs to have a bigger meaning from the performance to lay it all out on the line, emotionally from an actor. And Kieran does this where the dialogue isn't needed to understand where the pain is streaming from. Eisenberg is smart enough to know that it's going to take a great performance to really land the message and the theme of what he's trying to give the audience. Now, when it comes to the main problem I have with A Real Pain, it isn't anything with the script or the performances. It's rather the question mark on the relevance between the surrounding characters. Eisenberg banks solely on himself and Culkin and just hints at merely the other characters with no emotional depth or addition to the other characters. By doing this, I just got the feeling of throwaway characters to mainly just set the tension during emotional outbursts from Culkin, or even to set the scene for a point Eisenberg is going to make. And based on the small interactions from the first half of the movie, we get hints that these characters were going to help shape the movie, not just set the scene or stage, if you will, for Benji or David. If this was the case with these characters, Eisenberg should have mainly just made this movie about the two of them and their journey through Poland, and the strangers they meet along the way in self-discovery. This would have been just as effective as being part of an entire tour group. The tour group setting just seemed like an easy way to have our two characters travel in transition scenes. The journey through Poland with these two would have opened up opportunity to see more of the scenery and the culture as well, to help support these characters' talk of heritage that we hint around in this movie, and it would have landed a bigger, impacted message on a deeper emotional level. There is a scene where Benji and David, our guys, visit their late grandmother's apartment, where they stand outside an older, beautiful structure apartment building, and I thought to myself, zoom the damn camera out. Let me see more. The film must have spent a decent amount of time finding these locations, these beautiful locations in Poland. Even though this is a film about the journey of two cousins, the camera stays too much on them zoomed in, instead of showing us more of what surrounds these two characters to help the viewer, the audience, relate to what these characters are seeing on screen. It puts us in the movie with them. A Real Pain, some will look at this movie, probably during streaming at this point, at a mere surface level. And those that do look at this movie at a mere surface level may be disappointed on what they see. That's the dangers of watching these good films on streaming, is that there are so many distractions we might not be invested as we would be on a big screen. A Real Pain does really ask the viewer to not just sit and be presented with a story about two characters on a journey. Eisenberg counteracts this feeling in the best way possible to ensure the audience is forced to relate on some level with either or both of our characters by adding elements of what we find along the physical journey to peel back the layers of one's personal journey of what causes us not just pain, but also the journey to find happiness, laughter, and love. Eisenberg does a fantastic job on landing the themes, landing the messages, and also the feelings, but underutilizes the scenery and supporting cast to get him there. Eisenberg creates a great themed message movie, but how we go along with this journey is something I couldn't say I'm a big fan of. But at the end of the day, the performances are fantastic, the written dialogue is simplistic, and the messaging is on point. So I'm giving A Real Pain 3 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Thread, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you haven't yet checked out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, make sure you do. Again, the link of that show will be in the description of this episode. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film and support your local movie theaters.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.
Let the credits roll. We say farewell. Join us next time. We'll have more tales to tell.